morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzong, and as always, I'm with my people. Welcome to the program, guys.
Bukola, Thursday is finally here. So,
I was waiting for that.
This is a day we've looked forward to since yesterday. We're live for you in Lagos. It's an inside joke, by the way. I'm Kayode Okikulu. Welcome.
A pleasant morning to you. We're grateful to be back and grateful for clement weather also. Good morning and welcome to the program. I am Bukola Koka.
So, guys, two things caught my attention. The other day, Bukola said she bought tomato, as they call it, 10 for 1,000. So, after the show, maybe we need to do some barakbo so I can give her some money so you can buy where she buys. Because yesterday, my wife sent me to buy stuff.
So that's where it was headed.
Yeah. And I went there, I wanted to buy. The guy said 3. It's still 3 for 1,000 naira. I mean,
days after, right?
Significant. I don't know how to measure it on television, but I wish I could bring the size.
Not as big, right?
No. Just like that for 1,000 naira. I said, what is going on? So things are really, really difficult. So wherever I say things are coming down, I don't know where those things are coming down to. Maybe there are parts of the country. This is Lagos. So perhaps in Lagos it's still high up there. And then the second thing I saw this morning, as I was driving down to work, I saw this gentleman. Look, the day just barely started. You started drinking alcohol. For God's sake, what is the problem? This sachet alcohol. What is the problem? So these are the guys who are the lower ebb of the economy, the lower strata of the economy. If anything knocks your kidney, you don't even have the resources to sustain it. And people die sometimes not because it can't be dealt with, because of the resources needed to maintain and manage that kind of health situation. So I just felt bad. Sometimes I just feel like stopping by and say, do you really know what you're doing to yourself? You don't have so much money to do whatever will happen afterwards. Yeah. Why are you endangering your life, the life of your family, and everyone around you? So I don't know what has to be done with people that sell sachet alcohol or alcohol in sachet containers and all of that at the parks and every other place. I mean, these guys were just picking up. Are they drinking water or something? What's going on, man?
You know, Jeffrey, I can pick like 5 issues from the things you raised. First, alcohol in sachets and the tiny bottles were banned, remember, in February?
Yeah, I remember.
NAFDAC announced that. And I know the House had said that, or at least members of the House had said that, well, because of the economic situation, NAFDAC had to relax it. But NAFDAC came out and said that, no, that ban is still in force. So those sachets should actually not be around. That's one of the issues. The second part of this is, do we then begin to properly legislate these things? Because we know these things are not right, at least. Yes, there's a business side to all of this, but there's also the health side. That's why you see on packs of cigarette, they'll write it, you're liable to die young. And it's actually bold these days, but people still go ahead and do it consistently. So do we need to legislate or just allow people to do whatever it is they want? Not forgetting that particularly the drivers are literally responsible for the lives of maybe 5, 10 people, depending on the capacity of your bus. So regarding that, at least for motor parks, drivers and the rest, it should be properly legislated. Because if you go to those parks, if you know that things that happen, and it really tells when you drive on the road, you see them just park anyhow, you're thinking, but you can see, right? You know that this is not a lay-by. This is right in the middle of the highway. So these are things we need to talk to ourselves about and say, do we really want to fix this or keep going the way we used to go? I'm not going to mention the remaining 2. Maybe I'll keep it for Bukola to bring up, but we need to ensure we either enforce that ban or come out to say, we've dropped the ball on this one.
Well, Kade, I can't read your mind, but I can at least try, because there's so many other issues, you know, therein contained in what Jeffrey has raised. Without making excuses for indulgence, there are quite a number of issues that we're dealing with as a society. There's an air of despondency and disillusionment that is evidenced in what people resort to make themselves happy. We've talked time and again about mental health, you know, on the show and how to guard that space. Some people who do not have that education or who do not provide time for that education resort to alcohol or to drugs, you know, just to keep the demons away. And we know where all of these things arise from. The high cost of living. Some people do not have opportunity. Some people do not have resources. In fact, a handful of the people do not have the opportunity and the resources. And of course, they do what they can just to survive. But the issue is there are consequences for action. And that's why we're bringing up these issues yet again on the program. Do we legislate? How do we lead ourselves? Even if there's no legislation, how are we reflecting on our own choices? Well, we must be ready to face the consequences, and what we spend on the consequences may just be more expensive, costlier than what we're spending to keep ourselves happy if we're choosing the wrong things to do just that. Jeffrey?
So I suggest drink a lot of water, watch television, have spent time with family. I think my concern is what could happen to that individual if things just go ugly. That's my biggest concern. I know people are drowning in drugs and alcohol to just be evasive to the reality they are facing. But the reality will meet you after the alcohol clears or whatever it is you're ingesting or taking at the end of the day. So just be careful out there. The man who is selling it is making money. You may end up in the hospital. And if you don't have the resources to manage it, it's another kettle of fish altogether, from your lungs to your liver to other major organs of your body. At least Nigeria is tough. We hope Nigeria will be better. We want to see you in a new and better Nigeria. So don't kill yourself, all right?
There you go.
That's my simple advisory this morning. But let's bring you what we're talking about today on the program. We'll continue to track the series of political drama in Rivers State following the swearing in of caretaker chairman and, of course, their members. Opposition are calling, that's the APC in the state, are calling for a state of emergency given the violence that erupted the other day, and how the dynamics of all of this in a related case on appeal that can affect even the dynamics of governance. We'll be hearing, of course, that appeal today later on in the Court of Appeal sitting in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. How will this play out and affect what is going on in Rivers State? Oil State. We'll bring all the perspective with the legal expert as well as the people in the know.
We're not touching on law alone. We're also touching on other aspects of the arts. This time, one of the most critical elements of making a movie is the task of overseeing the creative direction, plot, sequence, and role interpretation with associated dialogue, light, and sound to energize a message. That's what our guest is passionate about. And let's chat with him later on the show this morning.
Absolutely. But as always, we're big on your comments, your reactions. And you have been doing that across multiple topics, really. So you do hashtag CTV Morning Brief if you want to be a part of this on the Rivers situation. Yes, it's a big one, really. So hashtag CTV Morning Brief. Or you can do it on WhatsApp as well. Yes, we're big on WhatsApp. So you see the number on your screen from time to time. One, Nigeria signing a pact to send a Nigerian to space. That got a lot of people talking. We also understand that the Senate president made some comments about the national anthem, if it was changed, if it wasn't changed. So that is a number right there. Some of the big topics of the day and the trends. We want to hear from you. So be a part of the show because there's a seat right here for you.
Jeffrey, your laughter is pregnant.
Yeah, I listened. I think he was talking about the social imports of the national anthem. If you listen to the entire thing he said, but sometimes the issue about comments like that is the timing and the sensitivity to the challenges people are dealing with. The Senate president, I would like to have a conversation with him. There are so many things he said that will be of interest that maybe we would like to hear how he processes some of these things so that we will know how to have that conversation. Because he was talking about social import. Perhaps if we didn't change the national anthem, maybe if people had internalized it, nobody will be killing each other and all of that. So it's neither here nor there, but Nigerians don't want to hear anything that has to do with nothing if it doesn't have anything to do with bringing the prices of things down and curbing insecurity and all of that, as strategic as it should be. Nigerians won't get it from you. So perhaps that's why they reacted.
Well, some of us will stick to the fifth, even though there's no fifth here.
If you can't, you're a journalist.
We're journalists, come on. That's our responsibility to talk about issues. Our job is also to hold the powerful to account. That's our responsibility. And we sort to that responsibility. Okay, but that's not all. And Kayode said you can make your voices heard via on X.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll amplify it for you right here. But when we come back after this break, we'll bring you your top stories. Join us again. Top on the brief this morning is a swearing-in of the newly screened caretaker committee chairman and members in the 23 local government areas of Rivers State into office by Governor Siminalayi Fubara at the event which held in Port Harcourt. Governor Fubara asked the caretaker committee members to bring their experiences to bear in running the affairs of the councils, just as mandated the Auditor General of the state to begin the audit of LG accounts following the expiration of the tenure of the immediate past chairman who left office.
What is happening here now is a defense of democracy. We will not allow a wrong precedent to be created in this country. It is not about Rivers State, it's not about Fubara, but if in any way this attempt of tenure elongation succeeds in Rivers State, it becomes a norm in Nigeria. So we have taken it upon ourselves to say, not within our own watch, that it will not happen, because it is completely alien to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Well, we can tell you also that 3 persons have so far lost their lives following the controversy over the local government chairmanship tenure in Rivers State. They include Inspector David Ngbada, vigilante member in Ebere-Omuma local government, Mr. Samuel Nwigwe, and Endwele Jindu, a former student union president at the Elechi Amadi Polytechnic in Port Harcourt. Mr. Jindu is said to have been shot at close range in Ahoda main town, while the Inspector Ngbada and Mr. Nwigwe were killed when 2 political factions clashed in Omuma over the tenure of the LG chairman. Confirming the death of the Inspector and Mr. Nwigwe, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Gbetokun, through the Force Public Relations Officer, condemned the killings in strong terms and directs enhanced intelligence operations to prevent further violence.
The Inspector General of Police, Federal Republic of Nigeria, IGP Kayode Gbetokun, PhD, NPM condemns in the strongest terms the recent outbreak of violence and subsequent breakdown of law and order at various local government council secretariats in Rivers State, where supporters of 2 political factions clashed over the tenure of local government council chairmen, which unfortunately led to the tragic death of a police officer, Inspector David Ngbada, and Samuel Nwigwe, a vigilante member at Ebere-Omuma in Omuma local government area of Rivers State. In response to these heinous acts, the Inspector General of Police has directed the Commissioner of Police in Rivers State, CP Olatunji Disu, to heighten security measures across the state and institute thorough investigations into the killing of the police officer and the vigilante operative, as well as the general violence which erupted in the state. The Inspector General of Police has specifically deployed operatives of the Force Intelligence Response Team, IRT, to assist the Rivers State Command in apprehending the killers of the police officer and the vigilante member.
We're not done with Rivers State. The state chapter of the All Progressives Congress, APC, is demanding for a declaration of a state of emergency in the state. This demand was made in Port Harcourt by the caretaker committee chairman of the APC, Mr. Tony Okocha, during a press conference in Port Harcourt, the state capital.
There is war in Rivers State. And who are the dramatic personnel? Who are the actors? The actors are Governor Siminalayi Fubara versus Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Those are the actors of the war. in River State, not looming. When we say looming, it means that there seems to be, like it's coming. We are at war in River State. And because the governor is unteachable, and because the governor does not listen to counsel, even the counsel of Mr. President, APC River State that I represent today is demanding for a state of emergency in River State. It is the way out so that you and I will live in peace.
In the meantime, the governor of Bayelsa State has called on the political leadership of River State to give peace a chance. Addressing members of his state executive council, he says the insecurity experienced in River State will hamper the development of that state.
I want to plead with us, for all of us, to look at development. And in looking at development, we must all add value to the state. What can we add to the growth and development of Bayelsa? It is not by guns. We're all witnesses to what is happening in our sister state, River State. And we're all praying for peace to be restored in River State. Let me again use this opportunity to call on all the key actors in River State to give peace a chance. Rivers and Bayelsa are one and the same states. And whatever that happens in River State, we are interested. And there must be give and take in that state so that development will not suffer, so that the people will not suffer.
A word for the wise, as they say. Let's move on now from River State to the court, where the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has told the Federal High Court Abuja that he will, under Section 17 of the Federal High Court Act, seek negotiation with the federal government. The section states that in any proceeding in the court may promote reconciliation among parties thereto and encourage and facilitate the amicable settlement thereof. His lead counsel, Aloy Ejimako, disclosed this in an open court after he moved 2 applications brought before the court, including the application objecting to the jurisdiction of the court. Mr. Ejimako says if the applications are denied, they will move for the implementation of Section 17 of the Federal High Court Act. But counsel to the federal government, Mr. Adegboyega Omolo, told the court that he had earlier informed the defendant that he does not have the powers to negotiate on behalf of the federal government, as the fiat given to him does not empower him to negotiate. Instead, the defendant should approach the Attorney General of the Federation. In a reply, Justice Binta Nyako said the court was not a solicitor, but only to hear cases, and adjourned to September the 24th for a continuation of trial. A joint committee of the National Assembly has commenced an investigation into the Train 7 project of the Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas, that's NLNG. The lawmakers are querying the several variations in the project as well as the status of the project. However, the project director, Mr. Ali Uwais, explains that the project is about 67% complete.
From what you have written here, original contractor claim request is $922 million. An original company offer was $83 million. On the issue of claims, what is the status of that negotiation between LNG and the consortium, please?
You have about 10,000 persons working. That means you have created jobs for about 9,000 Nigerians in that singular project, probably on site and in the office administratively. I would also ask, I want you to clarify that. The second question is on the expatriates. For the 1,000, do they all have valid permits?
Most of the variations have come from regulatory changes and what have you. In principle, we tried to put in a contract such that it's EPC and the whole responsibility of delivering this project is by the contractor, and we try not to intervene at all. So by that, the limits or the limitations in respect of creating variations. In terms of confirming the percentage of work, that if you go to site, would you indeed see 67% of the work and the personnel that are involved and what have you? Indeed, we as NLNG, as a company, we thrive and are proud of what we're doing, and if there's something we're not doing, we don't try to say we're doing it. So you're most welcome to come and see the beautiful work that we're doing.
We'll stay with the business of that sector, but on the international scene, global oil prices reached a 7-week high on Wednesday, boosted by optimism over summer demand and geopolitical tensions, and despite a surprise increase in U.S. crude inventories. Brent crude futures rose to $85.27 per barrel, with U.S. West Texas Intermediate, that's WTI crude, up at $81.47 per barrel. Analysts believe that the rise from early June lows signals growing confidence in a tighter global oil market balance. Meanwhile, Nigeria's crude oil production recorded a low of 1.25 million barrels per day in May, according to OPEC. On the international scene, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has been sworn in for a second term as president in Pretoria after his African National Congress struck a government or coalition deal with opposition parties to form a government of national unity. Chief Justice Raymond Zondo led Ramaphosa's oath of office ceremony before lawmakers, foreign dignitaries, religious and traditional rulers, and the cheering supporters at the Union Building, the seat of government in South Africa. At the inauguration, where he commits to upholding the nation's constitution, numerous heads of state, including President Bola Tinubu, Angola's João Lorenzo, Congo Brazzaville's Denis Sassou Nguesso, among others, were all in attendance.
As we enter another era in the life of our nation, the resilience of our democracy has once more been tested, and the people have spoken loudly that they choose peace and democracy over conflict, violence, undemocratic and unconstitutional methods. In their multitudes, in their voices that are many and diverse, the people of South Africa have voted and have made known their wishes, their concerns, and their aspirations. We accept and respect the results of the elections, and once again we say, yes, the people of South Africa have spoken, and we accept. Their will shall be done without any doubt or any question. The voters of South Africa did not give any single political party the full mandate to govern our country alone. They have directed us to work together to address their plight and realize their aspirations. They have expressed their appreciation of the progress in many areas of their lives over the past 30 years of democracy. They have also been unequivocal in expressing their disappointment and disapproval.
They beat Scotland on the opening night and were provided a stiffer test by Hungary, who they had only beaten once in their last 6 meetings on home soil. Manuel Neuer denied Roland Salah just seconds into the game after poor defending by his teammates, but Germany quickly moved with Kai Havertz and Andrich going close before Musiala secured the maximum points for the Germans. Well, those are the stories we've been tracking for you in the last 24 hours, which will form part of the conversation for the show and the rest of the day. Now, Bukola joins me to bring us some of the things you've been talking about on X, Bukola.
Yes, indeed. Hello again, Jeffrey. Nigerians are saying quite a lot, but top on the list is the Rivers political crisis, and Nigerians are reacting to the directive by the governor to order an audit of the accounts of the immediate past local government chairman in Rivers State, and those comments are quite interesting. But we start with their reactions to the governor swearing in of the new caretaker committee chairman. Exactly. And the first one is from Babatunde Akin, who says, which one is local government caretaker committee chairman and councillors now? When are you going to conduct elections into those council areas now?
All right, PH Chief _ Pekin says, congratulations to all the newly sworn in caretaker chairman. It's a straight swan for that one.
Well, and this one is from Afiz Sulaiman, who says, that is why the local government can never be autonomous. Of course, when you check the trajectory of the elections into local government offices, even in Rivers State, not to talk of the other parts of the country, it's the same pattern of court cases, lack of conduct of elections for years, and then conduct of elections months to the end of the tenure of the executive in power. So that's the story of local government administration.
All we know by the 1999 Constitution, there's nothing like caretaker committee. But the state gives the lawmakers the power to make laws. And so we have those legislation, which is a bone of contention now. And well, those are the things we'll talk about. But let's read your thoughts. Niger Town Hall is the governor. Failure to do the needful will get him into more problems. I initially thought he would give into the pressure, but now he's beginning to gain strength and courage. Good for him.
Well, that's debatable. This one is from Chini Nedum, who says, what Fubara is doing is against the law. They have both messed up the political terrain of Rivers State. Tenure elongation and caretaker leadership are unconstitutional. Nigeria has become the theater of the absurd.
Okay, so those are the arguments. I think the Constitution, I'm happy that there's a process to amend the Constitution. I think Section 7, subsection 1 should be looked into because it talks about local government, elected officials of local government, but it never gave a timeline, a tenure, which was left to the states, which is what the states have now done, and some are not doing it after the tenure expires instead of sometimes the tenure before it expires, or before it expires instead of, what am I even saying? Instead of it to happen before it expires, it happens after the tenure expires. So is that argument back and forth? And
that gap has been left to the mischief of the executives with so many interpretations given by the myriad of legislations from state assemblies. Well, if we're going to have an amendment, we also need a harmonization of that piece of legislation across board in all the 36 states of the Federation. The
lawyers will join us to explain all of that. Yeah. Okay, Fubara also does the audit of LG accounts in Rivers State. So that is one of his marching orders, given the fact, I guess because of how things played out. He wants all the accounts of the 23 local government areas in Rivers State to be audited by the Auditor General of the state. So, Mr. Priest, you say that's the idea. Keep them under pressure, probe them, invite EFCC to do their job. Meanwhile, any of them that refuses to vacate office, charge him for treason against the state.
And Kinsley says that's the way to go. Audit the account thoroughly, and that's it. And if anyone is found to have stolen, misappropriated, or sent money to the Obiakpo Hitler, he or she should be tried and jailed promptly.
Well, Divine says, these guys are in for the big ride. Similarly, Fubara, you are on track, sir. Audit them or make them account for any form of misappropriation.
Okay, this next one is on another talking point, and it's about the new national anthem. That comment from the Senate President that the new national anthem will build patriotism, resolve insecurity. Well, to put it in proper context, he said, had Nigeria not reverted, not ended the regime of the old new national anthem, that would not have experienced banditry, if you heard him correctly. And this first talking point is from Arakunrin Olabisi, who says, well, if taken seriously, it will indeed unite us together. We used to love our country and showed it in our dealings. Yes, we can start it in the new Nigeria of our dreams. from the new national anthem. We can do it we could have done it even with the old national anthem.
Oluwaseun says, point of correction, Mr. Senate President, no national anthem has ever curbed the insecurity or built patriotism anywhere in the world. Justice, equity, and fairness do. In a nation where those things are lacking, insecurity will prevail and citizens will not be patriotic.
Well, up to the next talking point, Jeffrey, and this one is on the federal government signing of an MOU with Sarah to enhance human space capabilities, to send Nigerians to space in simple language. And the first talking point is from Heavenbound, who says, that will be good. We need collaboration to achieve this. Which nation are we collaborating with?
Okay. It's a good thing we're going to space. Anyway, some people will say, well, let's see how that benefits all of us. Nigeria first.
Tomatoes.
Nigeria
at 3
first.
for 1,000 naira.
Oh boy. So Nigeria first, that's your other name is a lot of numbers. So let me stay with Nigeria first. Instead of spending money on sending a Nigerian to space, the money should be invested in building a rocket launch since Proforce is starting to produce satellites. So those are the thoughts you've been sharing on X, and of course, keep them coming. Remember, we also have a WhatsApp number. We want to see those videos as well as those messages. As much as possible, we'll take them and read them and amplify your voices, which is what we have committed to. And that's why this segment is very important to us when we hear from you. But we'll take this quick break and go to the very first conversation for the day. Join us again.
Well, let's get started with the big one, and it's one that has held us spellbound. Not in the right way, really, and this is not just for days, for weeks, but for months now. This is a situation that dates back to late last year. It's not what a lot of people saw coming, but it is what it is. The sad part is lives are being lost in this process. I'm talking about River State politics, and well, this is getting out of hand, as they say. So this morning, let's get some more perspective to this, shed some light, and hopefully get closer to resolving this impasse. We're joined on the program by the Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress APC in River State, Mr. Chibuike Ikenga, joins us virtually on the program. We also expect to be joined by former acting MD of NDDC, former Commissioner for Information in River State, Ibim Semeniteri. She'll join us subsequently on the show. But Mr. Ikenga, welcome to the Morning Brief.
Thank you for having me, Eddie.
Well, the latest, at least that we heard from your party, the APC, is a call for state of emergency in River State. I know this had been touted in the past, but we need to first understand where this call is coming from, because it has been said that the APC in River State is a very peculiar organism, if I can say that. Some even describe the APC as PDAPC in River State. So is this the former Minister Amechi's side or the former governorship candidate Tonye Cole's side, or the APC at the national level? What nomenclature does APC have now in River State to be calling for a state of emergency?
Okay, thank you. An impression has to be corrected immediately. The caretaker committee in the APC was constituted by drawing membership from all the factions that existed in the APC as it then was. I can inform you that I was taken from the Tonye Cole's team because I was one of his staunch supporters. So I emerged as publicity secretary. So all the APC in River State have come together under one leadership. Chieftain is the chairman of the caretaker committee. And we take our orders and directives from the national leadership of the party under Alhaji Ganduje and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is the overall leader of the party. That given, that's where we stand.
Right. So some have even said that the Minister of FCT also has a a part or a share in the APC in Rivers State. So is this also in the mix for you?
Well, you can quickly read that through because the FCT minister is working under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So it will not be totally out of place to say, for critics to continue to say that he's supportive of APC policies and programs, because the programs that is being driven, or programs that have been driven rather, by the president are programs of the APC. And if Chieftain, the past governor and FCT minister, is working with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, so someone can easily conclude. And look at his outstanding performance at the FCT. It's about APC's policies and programs. So you can easily conclude that.
Right.
At a cursory look.
Right. So, I mean, you'll not blame people who then call it a PDAPC, but let's get to the substantive issue. And at the heart of it, it goes back to, the House of Assembly, the defection of members, the Ameule group, to the APC. So, effectively, they defected to your party, the APC. And a law was amended. This, of course, caused a lot of, it caused lots of issues, which is what we're still seeing today. But it was taken to court. Court made a decision on it and eventually said everybody revert to status quo. And then we saw the emergence of yet another group of lawmakers now headed by Victor Okojumbo. But speak to us, particularly for the lawmakers that are now in your party, the APC. What is their state really, before we then begin to talk about this state of emergency? Because it goes back to their membership or otherwise.
Okay, quickly, the Rivers State House Assembly members under Speaker Martin Samehule did show interest in the policies and programs of the APC, and particularly in Rivers State, signaled interest in joining the APC in furtherance of that their love and likeness for the policies of the party. And that was in the process until certain citizens of Rivers State took them to the court under Justice Parson. And in looking at the issues, the court asked for proof of their decampment from the PDP to the APC, particularly wherein they are expected to show their membership cards and then show their names in the register of the political party, their new political party, being the APC. Unfortunately, those who took them to court, they didn't have those requirements. And predicated on that, the court struck down their claimed membership of the APC. And that is where we are now, that the processes of becoming members of the APC in Rivers State had not been complied with. Their names are not in the register and they do not have membership card. Neither have they been paying the dues as required. So upon this, the decision, so they are returned by the law to their party where they had already secured the mandate. So that given, it's also on the basis of that Governor Fubara and his team went ahead to ask that their seats be declared vacant, and that all these issues are subject of litigation at the Court of Appeal. More so, that the fact that they have left their party, according to Governor Fubara and his team, which the court had said they have not left their party, and that any laws they have made will not be complied with, that they have become null and void. These are some of the issues which are also before the Court of Appeal that have led to the present status.
Mr. Akenga, let's put the facts right. So help me out here. When you look at the enforceable decisions of court, 3 of them, from the court CTC we saw, I don't think anything was reflective of whether or not there were membership or anything that has to do with their membership. I know that issues of jurisdiction was addressed by his lordship. Issue of local standi was addressed by Lordship, an additional issue of adding PDP as a defendant in the case. The issue that you're raising now, which we're aware of, we saw that it was an obiter dictum. So I'm wondering why you're bringing it as a statement of facts.
Well, I'll confirm to you that there are plethora of court cases, rulings, orders, and judgments. And all these are the reasons upon which actions and inactions are being undertaken by the groups. So the Court of Appeal and the Federal High Court, as well as State High Court, have made decisions, and these decisions affect how people take positions. And up until the Court of Appeal, that's why I'm talking about all of them in general, up until the Court of Appeal takes a final decision, and then the Supreme Court, we will continue to have these disagreements and challenges until the final court.
Well, Mr. Kinga, I'd like to know, because it was an issue before the court, well, Jeffrey has provided clarification that it was an obiter dictum by the judge, but because it was an issue and you are a member of the APC, I'd like you to provide for us from an insider perspective if Amewule and 26 others have indeed registered duly as members of the All Progressives Congress. Do you have evidence to that effect? Of course, we know that they announced their defection publicly, but is there now evidence to prove that indeed they are members of the APC?
You know, membership of a political party is a process. It's not a one-off thing. That you have identified a political party and you say, I want to join party A, does not make you a member of that party. You have to go through the processes. Firstly, if you belong to another political party, as it is in this instance, they were members of the PDP, where their mandate was sought, and then they have declared intention to join in the APC, having come to terms with the policy, programs and policies of the party, and they have said so. So having said so does not automatically confirm membership of the APC on them. They have to go through first resignation from their PDP, as they cannot belong to two parties at the same time. When they resign their membership of the PDP, they tender their letter of resignation. Then they go to the same ward where they come from and register as members of the PDP, of APC rather. When they resign from the PDP, they go to that same ward where they come from and register as members of the APC. And they are issued a membership card and their names enter into the register. And afterwards, they will be accepted and they become members of the party.
Mr. Kenga, we don't want to belabor this.
Have not been consummated.
We don't want to belabor this issue because some things are subject of adjudication. So we're careful not to be at fault at the contempt of court. But I don't think what you're explaining is a difficult process. Everything you said now cannot take more than 24 hours. Putting up a resignation letter and getting a card, maybe 24 hours, 48 hours is done. This guy is defected December 11, 2023. This is June. So what are we saying? How hard can it be?
Okay, let me tell you how hard it can be as well. You know that membership of a political party is not just that, registration of membership of a political party is not just that. There's no registration that is ongoing now. If you follow the news, you'll know that APC national leadership had just kick-started e-registration. They just did that about last week. And now, you also know that if there are members of political parties, other political parties who want to join our party, we need a waiver from the national leadership of the party to automatically register them. And
so Mr. Kenga
are still in the process.
Mr. Kenga,
those are the issues.
Mr. Kenga, this same question was put through to the caretaker chairman of the APC yesterday on our program. Is the party being careful about the consequences of defection, and as a result is tacitly denying the membership status of Amewule and 26 others?
I don't know what you mean by deny. I've told you that it's a process and they have not consummated it. They were in the
process has not been consummated in 6 months.
I've told you, if there is no National Executive Committee meeting to address the issue of waiver, what has happened? The National Executive Committee does not hold meetings all the time.
But do you agree with precedent in the case of Abegunde that when you defect, you lose your seat?
That's not what it is. They gave conditions, so you must attach the conditions. So the conditions, if there are crises that have made it impossible for you to transact your business in your former party, then the decampment or the prosperity will be sustained. But if there are no crises, if there are no issues that have deprived you from proper participation in your party, then it may not be sustained.
So you cannot clarify if indeed Mr. Martin Amewule and 26 others are members of the APC. Is that what you're saying? They are not, their membership is undetermined.
Sorry?
You cannot say categorically the status of their membership right now.
I have said they were in the processes of becoming members of the APC, but the court has put a stop to that.
All right, we'll take your explanation. Moving forward now, I'd like you to speak to the tenure elongation dispute in Rivers State of the immediate past chairman of 23 local government areas, the swearing in of new caretaker committee chairman. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, I think I just listened to the governor. I have also listened to it yesterday. He said that tenure elongation is alien to our constitution. I agree with him. But he went ahead to say we will not allow that to happen under our watch, which he saw as an unconstitutional act. And then he's using another unconstitutional act, an aberration to democratic governance in terms of caretaker, to correcting what he termed as unconstitutionality. So can an unconstitutionality cure an unconstitutionality? The answer is no. So I believe clearly that the reason why the tenure elongation came into being in the first place was is the inability of the governor and his party, the PDP, to conduct local government elections as at when due. And we know their fear because their party, the PDP in Rivers State, is polarized. Their party is bedeviled with crisis, and they cannot put their hands together to be able to confront the APC in the local government election if they had fixed it. That's the reason why they are using an aberration called caretaker committee to replacing what they call tenure elongation. The House Assembly did say that vacuum has never been contemplated by our constitution. And if the governor and his party, for whatever reasons, are unable to hold elections at the local government level as at when due, that since those who occupy the office have been properly elected by the people, that it was necessary to elongate their term to 6 months, within which period the governor and his team can put processes in place to holding local government elections and replacing democratically elected with another set of democratically elected persons at the local government.
Well, Mr. Ikenga, you say that the governor is using an aberration to cure an aberration. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the erstwhile CTC chairman of Ikwere local government area. Does that mean that, shall we say then that you were also part of an aberration in the past administration?
That's what, not past administration, no. I did not work under Governor Wike as governor. I was never part of his government. Never have I been. Never. For the past 8 years, I never participated in his government at whatever level.
You were once a CTC
I've been an APC member. It was under Rotimi Amechi's term that I became a caretaker committee chairman for 3 months. If the constitution had said it's an aberration, that is what it is. If we occupied positions illegally, that was what it was. And therefore, the fact that we did occupy that time and the constitution has said it's not right, must we continue to thrive on illegality?
Right. So let's talk about this call for a state of emergency. What we've seen, and what we've seen so far, Mr. Ikenga, is that 3 people at least have lost their lives. 2 security operatives and 1 former SUG president. That is really sad, and that's something we have spoken about before now, how we need to be careful, because this naturally would dovetail into violence, and now we're seeing deaths being recorded. So the call for a state of emergency, what shape and form, one, do you expect it to take That's on the one hand. How viable is this call? Some have said that we've seen worse situations in Rivers State. We've seen worse, political impasse and rivalry in Rivers State led to more deaths, sadly. So that's on the other hand. And just wondering, the president had intervened the first time, or at least earlier on. There was a list of resolutions which some had called unconstitutional and the rest. So again, what would be the propriety of the president wading in, or at least the federal government wading into something that could easily be resolved at the state level or at the local government level?
Okay, thank you, Kaide. I'll tell you that in Rivers State, APC has called for a state of emergency. You recall that the raison d'etat of any government is the protection of lives and property. And once a government is unable to do so, the government has failed. And as in this instance, the government in Rivers State has failed at protecting lives and property. Examples abound. You mentioned those who have been killed, and the tension in the state and the threats to lives and survival by the governor's supporters are worrisome. And then PDP, having had two groups, they are clashing, they have problems. The lives of people in Rivers State can no longer be, their security can no longer be guaranteed. And as an opposition party, our interest is to ensure that proper things are done, particularly security, protection of lives and property, good governance, the transparency and accountability must be instituted. And therefore, since those things are now lacking, those tenets, those democratic tenets that we expect that will improve the lives of the people are lacking in Rivers State, we think that it is proper for a neutral person to be brought into this state to stabilize the state and allow people to go about their businesses as freely as possible.
So, again, the propriety of that is this just flying a kite? Have you sat down to really look at the issues? If I look at the role the APC has played in all of this and say, all right, everybody, let us do this give and take. This is what we're willing to take and give. What is it you're willing to take and give? Because at the heart of this, really, it's just a political crisis that can be resolved politically. I mean, all of the going to court, I think, is just trying to elongate the issue and spread it further. If the political actors sit back and say, well, I am giving, I am taking, this would actually end. So are we really being honest with ourselves, Mr. Ikenga? Well, I say ourselves, I mean the people in Rivers State. Is there really honesty and the desire to better the lives of the people in the state of Rivers State at large in all of this, or just selfish interests?
Okay, thank you. Kaide, I think that politics is about give and take. I believe that completely. I know that when the president did intervene, the president made that possible for us to so do. I was part of that meeting, I was there. And then it was proper that everybody, our Governor Fubara was there, and other leaders of the state. The House of Assembly has a disagreement with the executive, and the president intervened. And processes of give and take were put in place. And the governor insisted that he must have it all. You know, the last talk that broke the camel's back was that the president, in his presidential proclamation for peace, did ask that the governor should present the budget of the state to a properly constituted house under Martin Samewe. The governor refused. And the president also said that the Rivers State House Assembly must withdraw the impeachment notice. And they did. These are things that have to do with give and take. So the governor sidestepped most of the strategic and most crucial parts of this crisis and continued to do what he felt he could do. The governor went ahead to say that he does not recognize a properly constituted House of Assembly. It's not right. The governor has also gone ahead to stop their salaries, payment of their salary and allowances. These are all things that have created the crisis. He is the governor. Nobody is saying that he's not the governor. The issue of his position being threatened through an impeachment process has been withdrawn. As the statesman, as the leader of Rivers State, a government, he must do things that are in tandem with the interests of the larger populace. But the government had continued to do ethnocentric policy alignments intimidation of opponents, and then trying to create violence as a means and policy of government to try to become the legislature, become the chief executive, and become the adjudicator. For instance, you heard that Court of Appeal, or you are aware that Court of Appeal did say that let status quo be maintained on these issues, pending.
All right, I guess, okay, go ahead, please.
Unfortunately, unfairly,
oh dear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, please. We had a bit of network connection issues. So go ahead, please. Land on your thoughts.
Okay, so now today is 20th of June, was fixed by the Court of Appeal to look at the issues and try to find a way forward. Instead of the governor to allow today, the governor had gone ahead to announce against the run of play that the tenure of local government chairman had expired, and then he instituted a caretaker, a day to the day decision will be made. These are things that show clearly that the governor has assumed the position of the chief legislator making laws by declaring that he doesn't recognize the State House of Assembly, and then going ahead to proclaim another House of Assembly under Okojombo, his cousin, and then going ahead to take decisions on behalf of the court. These are the issues that have exacerbated the crisis in Rivers State and the tension. And that's on the basis of all this that we are calling for a state of emergency for a neutral person who will be fair to all, who will abide by the constitutional provisions and then redirect the development of our state. That is where we are.
So, Mr. Ikenga, I think there's a lot of debate about, and I've asked this question severally about status quo when it comes to this issue. What do you expect the governor to have done so that we can have a balanced conversation? Do you expect him to have left the other leadership, I mean the ones that their tenure expired on the 17th, to continue, or he should have done what he did right now? Apparently, it looks like you feel that the position of the governor should have been to respect the amendment of the law, which dovetails into the status of the lawmakers to know whether you can give effect to that law or not. It's a gamut of almost a bit of a confusion. So is it that by your assessment, what should have been status quo would have been leave the chairman to continue in office pending the determination of what happens in court today? Is that your is that your perspective?
Okay, thank you. My perspective, if you also took note, the only day that was a working day was yesterday, the 19th. The only day that was a working day was yesterday, 19th, and the next day is the day the court will take the decision. So the governor would have just kept quiet. Only yesterday, only 19th, he would have just allowed 19th to go until today the decision is made. If it is made in his interest and he wins, he goes ahead to do whatever he wants to do, set motion in place to conducting local government elections. But to kickstart this crisis when there is an order of the court asking everyone to maintain status quo is what had led to this level of violence. That is the truth.
Some will also say there will also be a vacuum. So why allow there to be a vacuum based on their own interpretation of the law, or at least the law being relied upon? But clearly, we'll still have to look to the courts to get a resolution, and today will be very vital in that process. But I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Chibuike Ikenga, Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, APC in Rivers State. Thank you for your time. And at least for the sake of Rivers people, we wish Rivers State peace and the very best. Thank you, Mr. Ikenga.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, I will get the perspective of Learned Silk. Yes, there's a lot to cut through, but it's important to get those perspectives. Hopefully that can guide the political actors. But that's just in a few seconds. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the program. So let's get a legal perspective now to the tenure dispute arising from the dissolution of local government chairmen offices in Rivers State. Joining us now to provide insight is Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Paul Ananaba. Good morning and welcome, Senior Advocate. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Good morning.
So let's start with the governor's actions, and we've had quite a number of talking points in the last 2 days or so. The order of the dissolution of the offices of the local government chairmen, and the order that he gave for administrative heads to take over their offices, and then again the appointment of caretaker offices into those local government. Where is the provision for the governor's actions under the law?
All right, thank you. You will see, and Nigerians will also observe, that a once peaceful state called Rivers State has now become a subject of discussion across the country, across the world. And it is clearly dispute between a governor and the immediate past governor. Incidentally, two of them are somewhat governors, because the Constitution also says that the FCT is to be seen as a state. Now, that has thrown that state into a state where, as at now, from what I know, about 3 persons have lost their lives, and we don't know what will happen next. Having said so, the law passed by the state legislator in Rivers State had provided for 3 years, and those 3 years expired. That law also says that a caretaker committee should be set up. I am not going to analyze those laws. I'm going to say what I think is right and what I think the Constitution will uphold. I think that the issue of caretaker committees in this country is unconstitutional. That's my position, not about Rivers State, because Section 7 of the Constitution is very clear. It provides for a local government system that is democratically elected. So a caretaker committee is out of the way. Now, I was happy when I heard that the governor had asked the administrative heads of those local governments to take charge of the local governments. And that's what I thought was right. So that today the Court of Appeal will make pronouncements. It's only a matter of hours. Now, you now have caretaker committees in this day and time. And in many states, another state copied it immediately, set up caretaker committee and all that. So we should be moving forward in this country, irrespective of individuals and groups and what they want. We need a local government system that is democratically elected. And we don't want to have laws that validate caretaker committees. In my opinion, since the Court of Appeal will be sitting on many of these issues, they would have made law pronouncements or interventions that will make the issues clearer and better than now having caretaker committees. Caretaker committees are not lawful, in my view, and they should be discouraged.
All right, Prof, there is some level of education I would like you to bring to the table. As you said, Section 7 of the Constitution doesn't provide for caretaker committee. No vacuum should be in government. There should be an election, just like we have at the state and the federal level. But it also provides the fact that the state should make sure this happens. Guarantee is the word that was used in that section. And Section 64 of the River State law, Local Government Administration Law, the 2018 one, number 5, gave the House of Assembly the opportunity to make laws for the state, which perhaps is the reason why the law was made that Section 9, subsection 1, 2, and 3 provides for tenure, provides for the governor's ability to set up caretaker committee, provide for him to conduct election after the expiration of the caretaker committee, which was now amended by the Amewule group to say, no, if you can't conduct election or there's a case of war, continue. And there must be election 60 days or 90 days before that particular tenure expires. No, going back to the one of 2018, the law, our constitution says that if any law made by a state is inconsistent with a law made by the National Assembly or the Constitution, to that extent shall be null and void. What went wrong that could not be spotted? Or is there an excuse for them to provide for caretaker committee based on the fact that the Constitution says the state must put this together for elections to hold? If you understand what I mean, sir.
No, I do. I didn't want to start analyzing River State law here because some of those issues are sub judice. And it wouldn't be right for me to be writing judgment on the television. That's why I was saying that in the circumstance in River State, these issues are before the Court of Appeal and some high courts. Clearly speaking, from my own view, the Constitution does not provide for caretaker committees. Those issues have been laid to rest over time. So, why didn't River State conduct State Electoral Commission swing into action 6 months or thereabout by before the time, knowing when the tenure of the local governments will expire? Why didn't they conduct elections into local government councils? So the issues are deeper than what we can just sit back and be analyzing. Why didn't they? If the State Electoral Commission had moved on to hold elections, we won't be talking about this. But if you know how the politicians and the governors and all that, how they operate, one, El-Rufai tried election in his time and lots of local governments. By caretaker committee, the headship of the local governments will be by pronouncement of the governor, which is what has happened now, not just in Rivers, but everywhere. So every governor wants to have all the local government chairmen to be people practically put in place by them. And you know that the perspective has been in the public space that the funds of local governments don't actually get to them. That is another issue the federal government has taken to the Supreme Court. So the governor would like to have caretaker committees. There's been no explanation why the State Electoral Commission did not hold an election. Now, having not held an election, it is obvious that the Amewule team may have looked at the situation and would have made laws that more or less will favor their position, because they pledge their allegiance to the former governor, so that you begin to bring provisos. Okay, if election is not hold caretaker committee or extension for 6 months, these are not covered by the Constitution, and I expect that the issues will be resolved. And much more, this caretaker committee that we are talking about now in Rivers, which assembly screened them, assembly of 3 or 4 persons. In this time and age, after Enokojo and Adeleke by the Supreme Court, after the clear pronouncement of the Supreme Court on these things. And you also are aware that the Court of Appeal has said, okay, you guys should hold fire till 20th, which is today. Why wouldn't the initial directive by the governor, which I think was direct and sound, that the highest civil servants or administrators in each of the local government should take charge for at least 1-2 days. This issue would have been brought before the Court of Appeal today, and they would have made some pronouncements. So that's my position. May be wrong, but that's how I see it.
Prof, I may want you to expatiate on what you just said, because you said it in passing. If you look at the amendment done by Martins Amewule and the members of that house that's still under contention, it's a beautiful piece of legislation, because it covers for any eventuality and even insists in section 9.3, number 4 of the 2024 local government law, that look, there has to be an election before the expiration of the tenure of any local government chairman. But do you think that this whole idea has been swallowed up because of the intricacies of the politics going on? And should we now throw the baby and the bathwater?
Yeah, that's the point I'm making, that I don't want to go into pronouncing on those points because they are before the courts. I'm just speaking as a Nigerian, looking at what's going on in Rivers State. It's not the first time. It's a practice that when a political head is removed or is not there, the next highest civil servant or administrator takes charge. And in this case, I don't see why Rivers State wouldn't have waited till today, and in a few minutes, the Court of Appeal will be sitting, and for the Court of Appeal for this matter to be brought before the justice of the Court of Appeal, they will know what to say or what directive to give or what order to make. You know, if you go back to say the law before the Amewule led a house or after the Amewule led a house, you may be pronouncing on delicate issues. Because the Court of Appeal has said, maintain status quo. Now, if you are maintaining status quo, why would a house of 2 people or 3 members or 4 now screen, the caretaker committee members and sworn in? Why should this country continue to slide?
Well, Prof,
why?
Clearly, each of the parties have their share, at least to take up in what is going on here, really. There's no holy side, clearly. But we've seen the APC now calling for a state of emergency in the state. I know that some people had talked about this earlier on. Perhaps they had seen this coming. But are we at that stage yet where the only solution is a state of emergency? I just want you to talk to us about the options available. So hopefully the political players know where this ship is headed and maybe can steer it right. before it's too late?
Let me start from a little bit back. My plea here is that both the immediate past governor and the governor now should know that a very bad precedent is being created in Rivers State. Rivers State is a dearly loved and lovable state. I want to plead with them to find a way. I want to plead with stakeholders. I want to plead with elder statesmen, both in Rivers and across the country. Those who can reach the governor and Wike. The biggest gift they can give to this country is to resolve this crisis. It's a distraction to governance. Lives are being lost. A lot of damage is being done to the psyche of the growing youths in Rivers State and even in the country. Many people are beginning to see it as a way of life. It is not good. There's no sacrifice that's too much to be made for the best interest of Rivers State. Having said that, the issue of state of emergency, we've had it sometimes in this country. Why should the democratic structures be put away because of this crisis? You have asked me, are we at the stage of state of emergency? If you look at the Constitution, the State Assembly cannot sit. Now, and that's why I said, when 3 or 4 persons go to sit, will anybody in the interest of fairness and justice in Rivers State say, oh, this is the House of Assembly? That's not, because it has been thrown up because of the crisis. That's what you will hear. So the point I'm making is that it's becoming difficult to run Rivers State, but I don't think it is the federal government should declare state of emergency.
So, Prof, quickly, pardon me. So you said that it's not at that point yet, but I wanted to also speak to this because it would appear as though they are above the law. We've seen conflicts across board. Individuals, organizations have conflicts, and we see how the courts and security operatives step in early and they forestall breakdown of law and order. You are appealing to people, and I wonder if to also appeal to those giving them legal advice. Because behind all of this, we have people giving them legal advice and telling them, no, don't worry, you are right. You are right to have done this when the Constitution says otherwise. So there are people giving them legal advice. There are security operatives in the mix as well. We've seen almost security operatives facing themselves. And you wonder, don't you belong to the same Nigeria police, for example? And you see them on other side, or either sides rather, and they're almost facing themselves. So the security operatives as well. So isn't this an indictment on them? Some say it's an indictment on the court as well, because it's looking like these people are above the law and they can carry on whatever manner they want.
Thank you, my brother. You can imagine what is going on. Some people are benefiting from the crisis. The truth is that the path to fairness in this crisis is very clear. But like you know, bias and interest blinds even the best professionalism you can put in place. And I think that's why we are talking about it here. It's important that the security agencies are fair and patriotic. It's also important that, like you said, that the courts will avoid pronouncements that will fuel the crisis. this country has gone through several issues based on some of these conflicting judgments or orders in various states, not just Rivers State. And many times, some of the people who who make these pronouncements they find a way to get away from some of these things, and that's what if the politician will tell you that nothing will come out of it. So I plead with regulatory agencies to ensure that any security official that goes contrary to established rules of engagement should get the appropriate sanction, and whether and NBA should also look into some of the rules, and then the judges who make pronouncements, we should look at them. You know, this country belongs to all of us. In all these states have lawyers. There's a Ministry of Justice. There are also people, politicians. Many of these politicians are lawyers. So you will imagine how many advisors will come. By the end of the day, when nothing is done about it, it continues as like a circle. Again, it's important that we are patriotic. We should not act based on what we will get from the government. At the end of the day, when the crisis continues, nobody knows who it will affect. Look at youths milling around the streets in Rivers State now. These are youths that should be in school, in factories, in offices, and industries. They are milling around the streets. All kinds of equipments, guns, demonstration, all kinds of things are going on. And the key people in the crisis, you will not see their children among the residents. Maybe their children are in great schools abroad.
Well, senior advocate, you have rightly observed that some of those politicians are lawyers, and in politics sometimes they say that politicians do not think like the rest of us, that their own pattern of thinking is entirely different. As part of the conversation, there is an appeal that is to be determined today that is really supposed to lead us somewhere in providing clarity, particularly about the status of the Martin Amewule-led group. But if you consider that there have been so many other decisions by courts that have not been obeyed, selectively obeyed, or taken further, to other courts for determination, are you optimistic that there will be any different if that appeal provides clarity today? And relatedly, really, do we have to wait for more deaths for the constitutional provision to be invoked to the extent that the National Assembly would take over the legislative duties of the Rivers State Assembly in the light of the circumstances? And if that has not been done, really, why do you think the federal government is waiting before it takes action on the Rivers situation?
All right. There are many things I think that could have been done. That could be done. Section 11 is clear of the Constitution. I mean, at the stage, at some stage in that crisis, the National Assembly could have, but there was no. As of today, as we speak, the Court of Appeal has, is seized on the matter, and the Court of Appeal did what is so commendable, in my opinion. They ordered a status quo. At this time, That is what is justice. And they are sitting on that matter today. What I'm opposed to is that, because we having taken these steps, we ought not to have aggravated or taken steps as if we know what the decision of the court of appeal will be. No, the two groups are not respecting the rule of law. That is the truth of the matter. The two groups, it moves to outsmart each other, and that's what has led to disobedience to court orders and each group trying to win the security agencies one way or the other, rather than the constitutionally guaranteed role they ought to play. Now, I'm very optimistic that the Court of Appeal will make appropriate pronouncements today, and I'm optimistic that I believe that the decision of the Court of Appeal will be respected. It will be respected. Because that decision will become implementable. Just one point before I leave this.
All right.
I also believe that we don't just have to wait for the courts in order to invoke certain steps to save lives and property. The federal government could have cautioned both parties at some stage in this crisis.
All right, let's look, as you see, that's why we call it a conundrum, theater of the absurd. Everybody cherry-picking what to obey and what to disobey, and all of this confusion that we're seeing. And sometimes it's even difficult to know how to address people. Sometimes it's that difficult because somebody will say, oh, I'm not, and all of that. Where does this leave the law enforcement agent? Remember what happened with the Kogi State former governor, where two security agencies had documents to defend their position, and there's a grandstanding as we speak. We spoke to the new caretaker committee chairman, one of them yesterday, and said he can't access the local government area because police has barricaded the local government. And we heard the governor say he's going to lead from the front. Nobody's going to harass his people and all of that. Everybody literally grandstanding. Where does this leave? What should be the position of the law enforcement agencies right now, pending the hearing and determination of the suit for today? Because some people were saying they are obeying one end, while they are just trying to protect lives and property. So it's just a bit confusing.
We are aware, even in Rivers State, coming from the times of many years back, we used to be a commissioner of police in Rivers State. You know about that. I don't want to mention names. It's not new. And it raises the question of the state police. It raises the question of who is the chief law officer, the security officer of the state. But having said that, when you look at our security architecture, intra-agency rivalry is also there. This person may be closer to those in charge of DSS, this one, police, and all that. Even policemen that have been assigned duties or who are SPUs for these politicians, are they not under the same police force? I'm aware that the Nigerian police has commissioner of police in charge of legal. I'm also aware that the federal government has its own legal team. When there are issues like this, they will get advice from the federal system. Because look at Rivers State, look at Jews milling around, look at Rivers State. Judges and many states, judges will give conflicting orders. Same in Kano. This judge will went this one, same law. And sometimes you have the Minister of Justice make pronouncement, give advice. Even though those are called advice, they are optionally compulsory. Because they will not, the office will not take sides with anybody. They will look at the law and say, this is what the law is. And I raised the very serious issue of our judges. If the governor removes a judge, for example, that judge can no longer practice law. So how do you go? Who will the judge? How independent is that judge? Is that judge independent when if he's removed for good reason or bad reason? Many judges have gone through it.
All right. All right, Senior Advocate, we hope that some of those that you say may be seemingly profiting from the situation will listen to your admonitions on the program today. We are totally out of time. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Paul Ananaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for your time and for the insights that you have provided on the program today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And right after this time out, we'll be switching gears to another part of the conversation this morning. This time around, we'll be looking at the arts, but specifically the art of directing. Stay with us. It's one conversation that you don't want to miss. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. So for the second time this week, we're looking at film directing, and you know that some of those wonderful productions that, you know, get us thinking, crying, laughing, you know, there's some people behind the scenes that are the authors of those wonderful works, and we're celebrating one of them today. Let's welcome Lordtanner Tolu Awobi. Tolu, so good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Again, right?
Yes. Growing up together.
Yeah.
Been fun.
Yeah, growing up together. And now we're
here
on this platform.
Should we just exit the set?
No.
You can do your parapo.
I knew you were going to say parapo. That's the only Yoruba word.
Well, okay, let's start from the very beginning.
Okay.
You know, I know from the days of Unilag, you did urban and regional planning,
correct,
right? And then you worked with Teddy Babyface, and I was beginning to wonder, you know, what's the connection? And you were never, you know, the entertaining type back in the days, you know, but now you're into entertainment. So walk us through the transition, you know, from those days, and now you're doing your own thing. You're doing film directing.
Let me start with a story. I'm a storyteller, I guess. I remember growing up at the time, and my parents used to think it was weird that all I wanted to do was, you know, draw, eat, sleep, draw, eat,
and
sleep.
Repeat.
You know, and press repeat. And I remember my mom walked me down the street, and there was this artist at the junction, and she took me. I was looking at all the fanciful, you know, beautiful things he painted, but I thought it was weird the man was always in singlet, you know, in that very narrow room. And then we walked back home, and my mom asked me, "Would you like to be like that man?"
Set up.
No. I said, "So you're not going to be an artist. So you would read architecture, right?" So I said, okay, at least it gives me the opportunity to draw, eat, sleep, repeat. But then I got to University of Lagos, and I was told that you didn't do well in physics, so you can't read architecture, right? So I ended up in urban and regional planning. Right. Spent most of that time just enjoying myself drawing. And then I left urban and regional planning, and then I found out that urban and regional planning had nothing to do with drawing, but painting houses and, you know, knocking them down. And I thought, nah, this is not exactly what I intended to do. Again, as a young man, you start to say, okay, how do I get a car? How do I get this? How do I get that? I said, okay, let me take a quick stop. Let me make some money before I start dreaming again. So I decided to work in a bank. I thought it was going to be there for 1 year, but I'd spent 7 years with Standard Chartered. To my friends in Standard Chartered, I'm sure you guys are having fun, but for me, it was like I went to prison, you know. And so by the time I was done my 7 years, I just thought, you know, it's about time I really did what I really wanted to do. But at the time, I didn't quite know what it was.
Yeah.
So I went into some time of introspection, and I don't know if you remember. The first thing I did after I left secondary school was to go join a video club, cassettes. You remember them? And I would watch tons of films. And it was the one thing that I could do. I would wake up in the morning, I want to watch a movie. I'm eating, I want to watch a movie. I go to the loo, I want to watch a movie. I want to get back in bed, I want to watch a movie. And so I said to myself, if I ever showed up in front of God, what would he ask me? What did you do with your life? I would say, a lot, but I watched a lot of movies. So I said, does it make sense then that I should, tell the stories I've enjoyed, retell them from the Nigerian perspective, from the African perspective? Can I take people on a journey to see some of the pictures that are in my mind? And can I make money while I'm doing that? And that's how I got into film. It was a journey of finding myself. Yeah. And I've spent about 11 years now doing that. And it's been a truly fulfilling and rewarding journey.
So it's like you went full circle, started from the arts, tried to move to architecture, urban regional planning, went into banking, and you thought, you know what? Let me come back.
I must also mention somewhere in between there, I had this, it was Teju who kind of like gave me that, the confidence to take the jump. Right. Because I had a conversation with him and he said to me, what would you really like to do? I would like to do something where I get to create things, and create pictures. And he said to me, why don't you come join me? At the time, I'd left Standard Chartered and I was trying to transition, that journey of looking for myself. And I did a quick stop at Inside Communications. But it still felt a bit restrictive. Yes, there was a lot of creative work, but I came in as a client service person, which meant a lot of marketing, which was what I did in the banks anyways. But then when I got the opportunity to work with him, I could get behind the camera, see how things transition from script to screen, and I learned a number of things from him.
Fantastic. So a couple of days, hide and seek, a young time ago, Ajuaya, The Wait, Love in a Showroom, the list goes on and on. And I don't know if you think you started late. If you think you started late, maybe if I had started when I was 20 or 15, you guys, I would be here right now. I'll have like 100 movies under my belt. But then I'd like you to speak to operating in this climate, because you said you wanted to show people the pictures in your mind, make money while you're at it, but making movies in this climate, I see you're already getting the groove. So tell us about movie making. We have stories. Exactly. Absolutely, we have. If you can just look at Rivers drama and pick like 20 stories from it, sadly anyway, but of course it's good for the creative sector. But how is it making movie in Nigeria? I don't want to say how tough or easy is it, but just tell us, how is it to make movie in Nigeria?
I literally say I'm sorry for the guys who are coming in now. Ouch. And I am sorry also for us who came in then. And when I say I'm sorry, I mean that when it comes to the support you need, the support is becoming more available, but it feels like a very lonely journey. When I started, I had, you stumble into these things. I won't say they're proper structures that help you transition. In other countries, you find film schools, and you see a lot of young people here now leave to go out of the country to, but I learned most of what I learned from YouTube. This is me sitting on my dining table and saying, okay, so how do I write a script?
So say that again, you learned from?
YouTube. Okay.
You haven't been to any film school?
No. Literally, I call it bootstrapping. Yeah, basically learning on the go.
By observation.
Exactly. So you go to a set. I remember my very first set was a Yoruba film. I literally thought these guys are crazy. Right? I walk into the place, I'm sitting, and there's this man who sits next to me and says to me, please, have you seen the script? I'm like, yeah, it's here. And then I said, so what role are you playing? And this dude says, I'm the director. I'm like, you are the director, and you have not read the script, and you're going to direct us. Okay. What are we here making? And so it's an industry that's grown, by itself.
Yeah.
And while we must commend what we've achieved, I want to point out that there's a lot more that needs to happen, a lot more structure that needs to come into the space. Now I'll go back into my experience in coming up as a director. I had to do everything while directing. I learned how to write a script by myself. Wrote the script. Then, okay, what do? I had to raise money to make the film. And then you go raise the money yourself, which is producing now, and then you go hunt for locations by yourself, go find the actors by yourself. Literally, I've done every part of filmmaking. Art direction, I get on set and I'm the one arranging what the set should look like. And it's made you a tough person, but it also has made you a jack of all trades, So in the time you were to spend to becoming a director, you spent it, dissipating energies doing things that are not necessarily, driving you forward as a director. Interesting, I will share this on TV. I went through a period where I doubted my ability to direct. It's about 4 years. I literally couldn't direct a film.
Imposter syndrome kind of thing.
People would walk up to me and tell me they want me to make a film based on the successes that I'd had. And I said, I get you some young guy who doesn't know the meaning of what he's doing, and I will guide him.
Because of the challenge.
Yes. Because, again, the thing is, my experiences also created a certain pattern in my mind. It's almost like I can see what the problem is going to be before the problem becomes.
Right. All right. So I would like us to go to the future. One question has been ringing in my head, and I want to bring it to the fore because of your role in the industry. We're big on drama, but there are bigger expectations. So perhaps, I don't know whether it's budget, you have to speak to it. When can we start doing series that are intellectually stimulating? I'm talking Grey's Anatomy. I'm talking Suits. I'm talking NCIS. We don't have, we've never had.
Okay, you've piggybacked on the first bit, budget. But then I think it goes a bit beyond that. And I'll be honest with you, some of my colleagues in the industry have tried to push that dial. And some truth needs to be told here. Your audience determines what you can make. Okay. And left to me, I will wake up every day, I will watch a sci-fi film. Now, which means I have a lot of sci-fi stories I want to tell. But where's the world in which I'm to tell that? And you cannot make film in isolation. Film is make-believe. People have to believe, And so you find that a lot of the content we are drawn to making is dramatic in nature, which is how the people express themselves. Now, in the United States, you find them talking high science, they're talking nanotechnology, they're breaking into new things, they're teaching their children to think like that.
Into space.
Yes, I'm talking about Mars, and I'm like, Mars, do we have the science? So it's in the world, you have to tell stories to the world you live in.
But we have a lot of political stories, and we have the sample of designated survival.
Brilliant. I had a conversation with someone, and let me show you how the world operates. So I went into an interview to interview some high net worth individual, and I walked into his room and he said, nice to meet you, you're a director, I want to make a film like House of Cards. And I was like, yes, you're talking to me. I'm excited about that. And then he says to me, give me a ballpark, I won't hold you by it. How much would it cost to make that? I said, House of Cards? Probably between $800,000 and $1 million an episode.
An episode?
I'm telling you. You want to Google it.
An episode.
An episode.
So within the context of Nigeria, that could be more if you consider our own exchange rate.
Let me break it down because I love talking numbers.
An episode?
I'm telling you.
Okay. I think maybe we'll just forget that dream.
Big film in Nigeria will be Gangs of Lagos, yes? Ballpark budget for Gangs of Lagos is 250 million to 300 million, right? That comes to about $300,000. The whole film. Now we're talking about one episode in a series that has 6 episodes or 7 seasons, right? The economy of skills that we're dealing with in Nigeria is so, I tell people, I said, last year they said Amazon came in, 2 years ago they came in, they looked at the environment, and then they said, what, we're not dealing with these guys. Because it's like you're dealing with ants. I don't want to be derogatory, but what we're playing with as budgets, it's tiny, right? I made my biggest film yet. It's called The Artifact, and we shot in 7 states, traveling across Nigeria in November, December. I don't want to talk about the experience of making that, but the total budget for that was about 200 million. Now you're moving 80 people in vehicles, traveling across the roads that we have in Nigeria, sleeping in hotels along the way.
You're not sure of the returns?
Let's not talk about returns yet. That's a completely different conversation. We're talking about even making the film, right? Now, there's the logistics of even creating such an experience in the first place, right? And then you manage to achieve that, and then you put your picture together, and then there's nowhere to sell. And literally, I can tell you there's nowhere to sell.
Then or now?
Now, right now, as we speak. In that, what are the options? I have Netflix, maybe Amazon, because they're no longer looking at the African continent, they want to do Europe. What are my other options? Then straight from Amazon all the way back to maybe YouTube.
What about the cinemas?
That's a different conversation also. Now, the thing with cinemas is beautiful, but the problem is the producer only gets 1/3 of whatever is made in the cinemas. Which means my first film I made 20 million. Should I say this on TV? I made 20 million in the cinemas. No, excellent. I like that part. Now, I'd love to hear what they would want to take off my returns on investment. So the film made 20 million in cinemas, and I spent 1 year making the film, and I went home with 400,000.
Whoa, that's money for the boys one night.
Yeah, exactly my point.
Or even less.
So in the end, it only becomes profitable. It only becomes profitable when you then make 1 billion naira, like Funke Akindele. Then maybe you go with 300 million. But even at that, you are the one who made the film.
Oh, so even when you make 1 billion naira, you're going on with 300 million?
Correct.
Wow, there's so much to this conversation.
There's so much.
I should just say that House of Cards I saw cost like $3+ million per episode. So you are pricing it in Nigeria.
I was still underpricing. Exactly.
Oh, wow, Tolu. I saw the naughty, snobbish boy as a growing up child. I didn't see this potential, but it's good to be with you on this side of the divide. I'm looking forward to interviewing you again. Tolu, I will be Lordtanner, film director, film producer. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Totally my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Jeffrey?
Well, that's it on the program. When I heard that budget per episode, I don't think I'm going to ask that question again until I'm sure all the marks in. But thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. We'll
be back again tomorrow. I'm Bukola Koka.
Hey, keep pushing. He's still pushing. He's still making movies, and he will hit the mark and surpass it. So this is our motivation to you today. Sunrise Daily is next. We wish you the very best today. I'm Kayode Kikiolu. Goodbye.